and I believe the FBI agent for the new series, we couldn't remember her name before, and I thought it was something like Faith or something like that, but it's like Saga.
That was
Uh,
it. Yeah, Saga.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just I like
Okay.
that's the name.
That's the name
So
that they chose, and that's the name we're going to use.
hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel, a podcast about video games, TV, anime, entertainment, life, and everything in between. I'm your host today, Joe, and with me, the Jetson of Texas, Nick. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah. I didn't never really watch the Jetsons very much, so I find it weird that people call me the Jetson of Texas. But I guess I guess I've done everything to deserve the moniker. Um, I don't really
Well,
know
to
what
be
it
honest,
means.
I actually flubbed that one. I'm just going to keep it because it was Jet Justice was the name that came off the top of my head, and it's George Jetson is the guy from the Jetsons.
Yeah.
So yeah, so fun fact that you didn't know the Jetsons either. So
I was gonna say, I was like, Chet Jensen. That's probably the Jetsons. Something to do with the Jetsons. I don't know. I'm
yeah,
doing
so
okay though, and we can just glide right past that. And yeah. How are you, Joe?
you mean foam right past that? We'll talk about more about your upcoming foam star
Oh yeah,
addiction
foam
later.
stars. Yeah, I've definitely not excited about that anymore. Uh,
But yeah, I'm doing all right. Been busy the last couple weeks. Last weekend, being here in Chicago, of course, there was the Mexican Independence, and to celebrate that, I went to a music festival called Riot Fest. So yeah, I ended up getting to see a buddy of mine really wanted to see the Postal Service,
oh wow.
a really tame group to see at a place called Riot Fest. Yeah, I mean, granted, at the same time, roughly, I think Insane Clown Posse was playing at a far stage. Like they kind of segregated them really far away, which is probably for the best, only because they'd probably drown out the surrounding stages. Yeah, they had like Queens of the Stone Age and Death Cab for Cuties, and then like the only thing else that I cared about was like stupid early in the day, and so we had to just kill most of the day like kind of doing nothing. But I saw they had a half hour on stage bit of Bowling for Soup, and I'm like, wait, they're still alive? Um,
I liked Bowling for Soup. I
yeah,
mean, they're ridiculous, but man, those guys, like, those guys got to where they did in the mid aughts on pure talent and luck. Maybe like 10% talent and just like 90% luck, but you gotta. They had that one album, and it was actually pretty good. I mean, as like a pop punk, sort of album, it was all right. There was definitely some good songs on there.
it was
Yeah.
funny because they made the joke saying, "All right, so you know, who here wants to hear us play Stacy's Mom?" And they're like, people in the audience are like, "That's not our song," but they did a
And it
cover of
could,
it, and I
that
know
would
I
actually
know
be
them
pretty
from.
good. I would have liked to have heard that.
They did a cover of "Flock of Seagulls." I ran,
Okay.
and that was actually the U.S. ending, or I'm not sure if it was in the Japanese version, but it was Saint Seiya. It was the like ending theme song, and it was like for like the old series. It was just really funny. So that was one of the first experiences with them. Uh, and yeah, they knew how to pander to the crowd. And for only a half hour set, they only played like three or four, probably four songs. One of which was
Two of them were
the
not
theme
their
song to
own.
Phineas and Ferb.
How many songs
And
of theirs did they actually play?
they played like four songs, I think, honestly.
Well, you named three songs that are not their songs. So how many of their own songs do they actually play?
Phineas and Ferb's theirs.
Okay. I don't know that one.
Yeah, they do the theme song to it. That's
Okay.
actually that was the joke. Is like yeah, what's our most famous song? And then he goes, it's not 1985. So they're it's like. And they started playing, and my buddy just looked just confused. That like half the audience like erupted, and I'm like, oh yeah, I had to lean over like that's the Phineas and Ferb theme, and it's like I'm surprised I know that one, but I do.
Wow.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean that whole concert sounds like like mid aughts,
uh,
early two
those
thousands.
guys, those guys blindfolded, just thinking it like I'm like, if you blindfold me and just had me listen to a bunch of random stuff, if I didn't know who it was, I'm like, I think I'd have confused them with Good Charlotte too.
Uh,
Just it's all about high school angst and like or that time frame in life, and like they're still working on the career of we've never grown out of like high school being the best years of our life.
they were definitely not they're definitely happier than Good Charlotte. Good Charlotte is angry angst, and Bowling for Soup is uh oh freaking well angst. Like, well, that didn't work out. Just keep going.
But honestly,
Yeah,
for a little half hour set, unfortunately there was no one who like set on stage to play immediately after, but
mm,
they would have been a good opening act for someone else, I think, because they really knew how to work the crowd. And it
who
was just funny
doesn't?
because
Go ahead.
later on it was just like I said, we had Death Cab for Cuties on one stage and the one of the main ones, and then right next to them afterwards with Queens of the Stone Age, and then it went back to the first stage again for the Postal Service. And so when it's the same lead singer for Death Cab and Postal, and they're like when he's up there the first time, he's like, yeah, we're like the most mellow pieces slices of bread to the Queen of the Stone Age sandwich here, you know.
Yeah, man,
So
like
yeah.
the Postal Service, that one song, I still, if like in a quiet room, I will still hear echoes of that song, playing. Man, that they played that thing to death in what, oh 06, oh 07. I remember going into
Yeah,
college and it's still just playing and playing and playing all the time.
yeah, when I got out of the service, that's when I discovered them, and that was funny because I'm listening and I'm almost like I knew of them. I knew that they came out with one album and that's it, and they were supposed to be, So as I'm listening, I'm like, I recognize the first song, I recognize the second song. By the third song, I'm like, I go over to my buddy, I'm like, I think I know this album. I don't know how. It's like,
Really?
but my wife had someone when she was her first year in uni. She one of her dorm mates had burned the CD for her. And so so she had played that like in the car, I guess. And so I knew the album without knowing. I realized I knew the album. So all the songs sound the same to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. It was good. It's like if you want to like just something to like mellow you out, except for when they're talking about assassinating JFK, which is a really weird opener to a song.
okay,
Yeah, it was just
that is
no, that
weird.
was well, it always felt really weird and then to see him on stage singing. I'm like, wow, he's I know that album and he is gotten old, like as everyone else has,
Yeah,
you
because I
know.
mean, he was probably what? He probably mid 20s, early like mid late 20s whenever that album came out. It's been dadgum 15, almost 20 years.
Well, dude, even Bowling for Soup, they're like, yeah, it's like we finally made it to Riot Fest. It's only taken us 29 years. I'm like, wow.
Dude, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how old they were, but they looked like grown ass men whenever they were on MTV back in the day with
Yeah,
Girl All the Bad Guys Want. That, yeah, man. I still listen to that every great once in a while. I listen to Girl All the Bad Guys Want. Um, dang, dude. 1985. Oh, you're taking me back, Joe. And Queens of the Stone Age, I had some friends that were really into them. I wasn't super into them, but I remember when that one of their I think it was their first album that came out. There was quite a bit of hype to that. I think it was their first album.
well,
Uh
they also were big in Rock Band as well. Like I like
oh,
that. There's quite a few songs that were very much staples in the groups that we played with, and so like I couldn't hear some of the songs without thinking of certain friends singing said song.
see,
So it's like,
there's some bands that kind of made it. I mean, they sort of made it already, but then they really made it off a Rock Band because everybody was in high school playing that, and then in college playing that, and so it was like, yeah, I like. It's not even like you like it. It's just that you've heard it so many times, and you've played it or heard someone else play it on Rock Band that you're just sort of like accepting of it.
I also think it gave a lot of classic rock a extra boost in the arm because
Yeah.
like most people wouldn't think twice about a lot of that stuff, and bands other than knowing who Ozzy Osbourne was from TV,
Yeah.
like
Oh, remember the
which
Osbournes? That TV show, is that anything like that still on? Hopefully,
Probably. But
hopefully not.
when did Ozzy become an actor? 1985 comes full circle. There you go.
Dude, yeah. Wow. Oh,
But yes,
dude, it
all
hurts.
right. That was my that was last weekend for me, and uh, plus I guess it's a thing that's native to Chicago. When I came back to the States, they were like every time this year, they're like a lot of vehicles just having huge Mexican flags rolling down for the entire month, or giant hood wraps, and it's just it's yeah, it's more than most Americans for the 4th of July. That's for darn sure. So yeah, it's just everywhere you see it for the entire month. It's just that pride will be there forever, and it's just kind of funny because you're like, oh yeah, I guess it is coming up soon again. When you start seeing hood wraps again, and you know, like I said, multiple flags from a sedan or a
Yeah.
coupe. You're like, how are you strapping that flagpole? Because that sucker's going to come off right down the highway.
Riot
But
Fest,
yeah.
huh? Wow. Okay. That's cool.
No, it's just well, like I said, Chicago has they celebrate Mexican independence pretty hardcore here. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. All right. Uh, Outside of that, what have you been playing, sir?
I got pretty far in Alan Wake. I just finished chapter 5. There are 6 chapters in the main game. And I don't have any of the DLC. I don't know. I don't think I'll play any of the DLC unless you tell me I really have to. But yeah, it's good. It's I don't know how much I'll talk about it next time. Probably talk about the ending maybe or something. But let's talk a little bit about the gameplay now. Well, I'll talk about the gameplay. I like the gameplay, but I'll talk about some of the things I like the most. I like the atmosphere. That has really, in the first chapter or two, I didn't really get a good idea. I mean, kind of saw what they were going for, but they really stuck with the atmosphere hardcore. It really reminds me of the X Files in a lot of ways. And the flashlight stuff is really cool. Um, and I'm just really excited to see what they're going to do with all of that stuff that I just talked about in the second game, because I feel like now they're going to have a lot better chance to nail all that stuff. Obviously, the remaster is good, but to kind of go into like a next gen PS5, Xbox Series X game with Alan Wake and the other lady who I forget the name of. I think
It's
I'm actually way more excited for Alan Wake 2 now, obviously, than I was prior. But I mean, like, how could you not after playing the first game and saying like, okay, like, what are they really going to do with this? But yeah, the combat I have learned to like. There are parts where I have gotten kind of stuck and it's been a little bit repetitive, and I had to sort of cheese it or finagle it to get like there's one part where I was like, I don't know if I can really do this. I had to dodge a bunch of axe swings and kind of just sort of got lucky and got to a light post, and that was kind of iffy, but it didn't really take all that long. It was just sort of frustrating. I was like, okay, but for the most part, they set you up really well with the kind of weapons you need. Early on, I got stuck and got killed a bunch, and then I kind of realized, and I kind of powered my way through by luck again. But then when I looked back, I was like, oh, I had like all these weapons, and they're giving me plenty of weapons. So I just started letting loose and just like sort of saved the flare gun. But whenever I see like 3 or 4 enemies, I'm like, y'all gonna have it right now, and I just unload that flare gun at least once, and then see where it gets me. Um, so yeah, I like the combat more. It is a little bit like, I don't know, arena esque, where you like, okay, here they come, here comes the bad guys, and you gotta like defeat them all, and then you walk, and then you do like story, and then oh, here comes the bad guys. So I think that could have used a bit more time in the oven. Um, and but I mean, overall, like, the story started to escalate. Some extra characters. The sheriff is cool. Barry is cool. Um, the old lady.
Barry is just he hams it up in such a good way. busts out with those Christmas lights and
I
the
just got,
headlamp.
just saw that. I just saw the Christmas lights in the headlamp. And I was like, that's a pretty good idea. And then
It's like the Eye of Sauron. Did you just say? All right, can we take that back?
yeah, he's like, okay.
Pretend I didn't say that.
He's like, yeah, I think I would take that one back. Yeah. And the game is pretty serious. It does kind of joke with itself a little bit though. There is one part where early on where Alan Wake says like he falls off of a cliff and he says something like, I can't believe already fallen off of like 4 cliffs or something like that. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Because it was like, all right, how many cliffs are, and then you just kind of continue to fall off cliffs, as the game progresses. So it's kind of silly for that, but definitely really enjoying it a lot. I didn't know how much I was going to enjoy it, and I figured that since you were so gung ho about it and you had suggested it, that it wasn't going to be a bad game by any means. But I just didn't really know where it was going to go, and I have settled in, and I am really liking it a lot. I haven't been sticking around for the Night Springs episodes because some of the sound is really hard to hear over some of the game sound, and so I was like, I guess I'm just gonna have to go and watch this on YouTube if someone has pulled it or if Remedy has put it up or something like that. So I kind of regret not sticking around for some of that, but overall I'm really enjoying it. I only got the one chapter left, and then I'll be ready for Alan Wake 2, I guess. And it's a good game. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, well, the as far as the gameplay goes, yeah, it is a bit dated, but at the same time, it was pretty different for the time because it's one of those things that, well, how do you make it how do you make a game suspenseful without just making everything bullet spongy? And it's just like that's the weakening mechanic. And I can still very distinctly hear the sound of the flashlight focus, and then that like build up whine until they're about to their shadow is about to pop, and then they're exposed. And it's one of those things that once you like if you have the sound up enough, or you get used to the audio cues where like you're about to get hit by an axe or something's about to come.
Yeah.
So then when you're surrounded, I literally because the field of view is one of the things that I think it's fine because of the game style. And what you need a tighter field of view because you're trying to make it claustrophobic. So, but when you're like, oh, I'm about to be attacked, I'm gonna dodge downward, and then all of a sudden, sure enough, you end up dodging. There's like 2, 3 guys just standing right on off screen, just south of you, and then you juke through them, and then you're like, all right, here we go, and that's when you like pop a flare or something, and getting the new upgrades for flashlights and stuff is always like clutch. It makes you feel so much like you get a little upgrade and you're like, oh, that feels great. The thing that I despise is ever since this game, it might have been done beforehand, but it's that generator mechanic. I feel like every game has copied the same generator mechanic ever since then.
Yeah. You
Uh,
do see generators in
and
games a lot now.
yeah, but no, that once again, I truly really like that game, and it's yeah, you're right about the X-Files feel to it, but it's very much Twin Peaks. It doesn't
Yeah.
even try to hide. You have the lamp lady who is a one-to-one to the log lady. They meet in the diner. Like it is meant to be, an homage in that sense, and they do a good job. The story's good as far as DLC goes. Um, I never finished the DLC. It was very arcadey.
Oh, okay.
It was a different feel. I remember not really being as into it. It was one of those things that I always felt like I would get back around to it. Like, yeah, I'll do it because they introduce a new element. I'm not going to say much without because it's kind of like even just explaining the antagonist portion like might be a spoiler.
Right.
But I feel like it might have a connection to the new bit coming up, and so it's one of those things that it's not very long. The DLC, I mean, it's very doable in a couple sittings from what I've heard. So I might try to do that. But just to see if I can bridge that gap. But no, for sure. And I believe the FBI agent for the new series. We couldn't remember her name before, and I thought it was something like Faith or something like that, but it's like Saga.
That was
Uh,
it. Yeah, Saga.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like it's just I like
Okay.
that's the name.
That's the name
So
that they chose, and that's the name we're going to use.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Just last thing I'll say about it is a unique game. It is a game that they wanted to, like they made the game they wanted to make in the way they wanted to make it, and the mechanics of it. You know, while some of the stuff is a little silly, the mechanics of it are really cool, and it it fits itself really well. So I definitely enjoy at least that much of the game, even if the game wasn't as good as it is, even if the gameplay itself wasn't as good as it is, which I think it is good. That at least would be something the game would have going for it is how much it's like, yeah, we just want to make this thing the way we want it.
yeah, the like I said, from this you can see where they came. You know, it's like because Remedy's games up until this point were Max Payne 1 and 2, and I think this was what came after.
Right. Oh wow.
And then so yeah, there was so they came from an action heavy background, and that's why in this one they end up he's essentially they make Max Payne he's the author of Max Payne, but he's not. They don't call it
Yeah.
Max Payne at that time. Um, and but they also make fun of the because when he meets the sheriff, she's like, "Oh yeah, my father reads your books." He's like, "I think it's a little too like exposition heavy or something like that for my taste."
Too many
And
metaphors, and
yeah,
he's like,
metaphors. That's yeah.
yeah.
They're like, I mean, it's just. I think one of the Max Payne's quotes was like, like a metaphor to the brain or something like that, like because or something like that. It's yeah, but it's funny because he's like, wow, no one's ever told me that before,
Yeah.
Uh, so they make fun of Max Payne in the series too, and once again, Sam Lake is in one of the video clips that you'll see of like doing like a late night like talk show,
Oh, okay.
uh, and so you'll see him there. So I want to know if they do some sort of reference because he is obviously going to be a main character in Alan Wake 2. So I'm wondering if they're just going to make any hint at all for the fact that you technically showed up in the previous game.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so,
I don't know.
but yeah, totally excited about this one, and I'm glad you're enjoying it too. So, because considering the fact that I've been talking about this forever, and so yeah, that's cool.
It's good.
Uh, yeah, I've played a lot and not gotten very far in Starfield. It's a kind of I just wanted to before dedicating myself to the main story and just kind of sticking to that because everything I've come across, whether it's reviews or people talking and stuff like that, it's like, oh yeah, you should totally just mainline the story up until like a certain point, and then you can really it opens up for you. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, before I get like really the ball rolling, let me just knock out all. I was curious how many possible side missions there were in the starter area, and there's a lot. And then I also wanted to check out, like, let me explore. Didn't realize you can do it at first, but you your starter like you land on the major city of like New Atlantis, and in most of these kind of games, you're like, okay, well, this is all I'm here for. I hit the city, I visit the spots in the city, and I leave. But you can just straight up leave the city grounds and just wander in the wild. And the game auto generates new places for you to find, whether it be like a weird outpost, a cave, or something like that. And the previous location, you literally go to stop at a little base, and I spent way too much time on that place too. Uh, was like because they land you right next to this base, and I'm like, yeah, instead of going right there, right next door to where my ship is, I'm just gonna go the opposite direction. I had maybe a dozen, less than that of different locations. I'm like around this map. I'm like, that's really cool. It's a really big space, and they provided you with just enough things to do. Okay, for some reason, I think my game's glitching because they're populating with way more than that previous location. So when I pull up the map now, there are icons just everywhere, like littering my map. And I'm trying to scroll over to the city, and it kind of stops partial, like halfway, and then I have to load to like a spot to the far right of my map, and then I can go back into the map and finish scrolling to the right. And so that's yeah, it's just one of those things I was like, yeah, I don't think they planned on someone like just wandering the lands. But because of that, and all the side quests I've done, I'm like level 13 in the very beginning. I think I've mastered all the lock picking, or at least I've gotten this level 3 lock picking. I've gotten like I've maxed out my commerce.
Yeah.
Um, so like yeah, I can barter for the best sailing and best discounts.
Yeah.
You know, certain things
You
like that. I was like,
you,
yeah,
you this is sort of your MO though. Like you have done this in other games where you sort of, I mean, I think you've actually been said as much, where you tend to get OP in a small area and then just like bowling ball your way through a lot of the rest of the game. I think you're gearing up
yeah.
for that.
So that is an old, a true to form habit. But when it comes to like Bethesda games, I'm not sure how they do it in this one. I haven't bothered researching it, but they've done the enemy leveling scaling to to you. So I know that they started that with Oblivion,
Hmm.
and in fact if you did what did back then, depending on where you were, like certain missions would actually like block you out
Oh,
because um the enemies scale to you, but the NPCs don't. And if you have an escort mission and you're super high level, your escort is now nothing but like
a
a
one
wet
shot.
tissue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then any of the enemies come by and they're just wrecking house, and you can never you'd literally stop yourself from completing story missions that way.
Yeah.
uh and so it's one of those things that I don't try to like power level too hard in that sense, because there's this game is meant to be played multiple times through and because they have a new game plus, so you don't necessarily need to unlock the entire skill tree in one go. So I'm looking at it as I just got a few things that I wanted to get early on, and that now I'm gonna in the next little bit, because now I've officially done all the stuff I can. Well, they still like I said, they're still populating icons, and it's kind of crazy, and I think it's just bugging out for me. Um, but it's gotten me, like I said, so many levels early on. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the main story, and the rest of it should cruise pretty nicely. And the thing is, now I have an understanding of the mechanics, but honestly, I shouldn't have stuck around as long as I did. Uh, but it's one of those things that my wife's also playing on the Xbox, and I'm telling her, I'm like, all right, don't bother wasting your time with this. Here's my TLDR. Just streamline this part for yourself. I mean, if you want something good, here's a few things for you. And yeah, it's been a fun play, but that's about it. There's not a whole lot else for me to say except for I'm super pleasantly surprised with this game, because mainly I expected it to be a broken mess. Um, if you look historically, they usually are in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
I think
I'm actually
I think Bethesda made an announcement months ago. I remember seeing this because I thought it was hilarious that it was going to be. They said this is going to be our least buggy game uh, yet, and I was like, that's really sad when you have to make an announcement like that. But it sounds to me like they've made good on the promise. Not that there are no bugs, but that it is technically out the gate the best that they've done so far. So that's good.
yeah. All right. Well, enough about that. Let's see. We have quite a few little tidbits of news. So last week, both a Nintendo Direct and PlayStation State of Play happened. And currently, as we're recording, TGS is going on. So TGS, there's still going to be some stuff that's probably not been covered yet. So we might touch back on this next time around. But
Okay.
we got at least some stuff from a little bit of everything here. So let's go with the Nintendo Direct, Nick. What are some of the things that you found to be interesting?
So the first thing there's a lot in this Nintendo Direct that I was just like, and I kind of skipped past on a lot of stuff. But um, the first thing I thought was kind of interesting was the Prince of Persia: Lost Crown. Um, that looked pretty good. It's like a 2D, side scroller, and you fight bosses and stuff, and it looked good and fun. Um, the I should talk about the Mario and Donkey Kong thing. That looked okay, but it just didn't really grab me very
Dude, that's
much.
great, man. I'm like that was a great classic game. I believe it's a remake of the original,
Okay.
with some new ideas twisted in, and or like the I don't know if the old games were a great puzzle game, is what they were.
Okay.
They made a couple of them. The second the latter one had like minion little like robot Mario's, so they're like lemmings essentially. So
Yeah.
you
I,
got to
I mean,
but those games were phenomenal puzzle games.
I got the
So this one,
throwback aspect of it, but I was just like, I don't know. Like, it just didn't really, it didn't really, there wasn't anything about it that I really wanted to play. But I mean, I know that's like kind of like the big thing, but I thought the Prince of Persia Lost Crown looked okay. Not something I'm going to buy, but I was like, okay, that looks kind of nice. Like it'll be fun on Switch. Um, and then the next thing, it's kind of I guess the biggest thing of the biggest new thing of the show would be Princess Peach Showtime. This was teased in a direct a while ago, and they're coming out with it. Yeah, I don't really know what this game is really about. Um, it
so the
looks like
trailer says that she goes to a theater. Theater's taken over by a baddie, and it's her job to save the theater. I mean,
by
it's essentially
by
you got
transforming.
yeah, she's now a stage actor. So it's now Kirby meets FF10 2, and she does wardrobe changes to get different combat abilities.
Yeah,
Um, it looks like a cute game. I think it's uh, there's a lot of charm to it.
yeah.
I'm not going to play it, and I realize like these games are really well polished. They look really solid. I just realize I'm kind of demographic out of it, but at the same time, I'm thinking about my kids in the future. I'm like, these kind of games are awesome for them.
I mean, maybe a Luigi's Mansion level of thing for Princess Peach is maybe too much for what people would actually be willing to buy into that character for. But I was kind of hoping for something along those lines. The tidbit we got didn't look like it was going to go that far, but something along those lines where it's like, okay, this is more, fully fledged for Princess Peach and trying to really kind of, I don't know, like make it fun on Princess Peach's terms. Um, and I don't know. I'm not really seeing too much of that. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll pass on that. But yeah,
Did you want it to be more like Super Princess Peach was for the like DS, or
uh,
like what did?
like I'm like Luigi's Mansion,
Okay,
like obviously not the same like horror or maybe sure, but just something like, hey, we're going down a particular path with a particular style of gameplay that is unique to this character for this franchise, and we're gonna do something cool, but with Princess Peach that's separate from the others. And
that's exactly what you described this game as. Like everything you just said, like this ticks all those boxes. I mean,
no, it doesn't.
it's
It's not cool.
it's it is in the same. It's like is Luigi has his mansion or whatever, a singular building. She's in a theater. She has her own unique game style gameplay, and it's her own
No, no, no,
combat
no, no,
arena. It's
no,
they,
no.
they change it up.
By unique, I didn't mean like just different. I meant like good and like I don't know, enticing. I didn't see anything about this game besides the transformations, where I was like, oh, that looks like it would be fun to play. Um, it just doesn't look like Luigi's Mansion, for better or worse. It is a different and fun style. It's like, hey, we're gonna do this thing, and totally it's cool and it's different. And this Peach stuff, it might be different, but it just doesn't really seem all that enticing to me.
Yeah, they are remaking. They announced the Luigi's Mansion 2 remake, and that is like the weakest and unplayed, Luigi's Mansion out of the three. The third one that came out was well received actually, and I don't know. It's one of those things that once again, the Princess Peach just may not be for you, man. But at the same time, I think they do enough where it's like it's for the kids that they're targeting.
Yeah.
This is going to be up their alley. But then again, I remember when Luigi's Mansion came out, and I thought that was just hot trash. Um,
Yeah.
There was no need for it to ever exist. And so, but you're saying that's cool. So I'm like, okay, good for you.
I think
Um,
it's. I think it's. I think the gameplay, because back when Luigi's Mansion came out, there was no Mario Sunshine yet, and everybody was just like, "Why is there no Mario? Why are we getting this Luigi's Mansion game?" And I think that it's kind of proved itself a bit more,
oh yeah, like especially
to be a
especially in
bit better.
hindsight after Sunshine, you're like, well, we got Mario with a water jetpack, or we got Luigi with a vacuum. Let's do Luigi with a vacuum. They've
Yeah,
made two more of those games. How many times have you seen the water cannon come back? Not a single time.
nope,
Uh,
nope. That was just cleaning up Nintendo's stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. I was just like, I was hoping for something a little bit better. But thank you for reminding me that these are games for children. So maybe I'm
I
not
mean, I know you
the
out of
right
the two
demo.
of us, you're the more hardcore Switch fan.
Yeah,
But it's so.
there are some daggum good Switch games. Um, anyway, uh,
Speaking of which, one of the ones I'm looking forward to, I'm going to jump the gun here because I am super stoked for Super Mario RPG. They've showed more gameplay and it looks awesome. I'm
it does look
like
great.
it looks like I remember it essentially. Actually, I remember it looking like garbage too, but it looks no, you had like 4 pixels of a block and you're like I'm pretty sure that's what this is. They have, all these Easter eggs and with low polygon count and they look
And
really good now. Like it's and they're doing new dynamic team group attacks now too, which is a really new concept.
I was gonna
Uh
ask, like, there's some new concepts that they're throwing in there to kind of beef up and fill out some of the mechanics, right?
Yeah, so they've added a few new things into it, but mostly it seems they're holding true to form for a lot of it. Like I said, the active battle system is really great when you can add an extra time your attacks to add extra oomph or to do to add to your defense if you block your just at the right time. I know Mario has a red turtle ability where if you time your jump just right when you land on the turtle shell you can continually you make another jump and the turtle shell hits the enemy comes back and if you land it just right with that button press you can rack up a huge combo and just mess up an enemy and that game was super awesome. It was way ahead of its time. It's Squaresoft at the time at its like peak. It was
Yeah.
you never expected
I mean,
Mario in an RPG and you never expected it to be that darn good.
yeah, like that is like I don't know, like the two perfect Venn diagrams of like mid '90s Nintendo and mid '90s SquareSoft just coming together to create this amazing thing that we will never. I mean, we have this remake, but that's not really the same thing. We're probably, I don't know. I don't know what else would compare. There's probably something else in like maybe the PS2 or PS3 era, maybe PS1, something like that. But for that time period, dadgum, that was really kind of a unicorn.
Yeah, it really was. So, like I said, it looks great. Not much else to say about that.
Yeah,
Still super excited about it, and I would really like to go back and play this one once it's out.
yeah. I hope that we both can. For me, there's one that I wanted to mention: Eastward DLC. So Eastward came out like what 2 years ago. I feel like we had just started this podcast whenever Eastward came out. Still haven't beaten it. I know you're gonna make fun of me for that. That's fine.
You were
Uh,
so close too.
I think I'm at the last boss. I just anyway. So it's this DLC called Octopia, and it's different from the main game. The style of gameplay from the main game. It seems a little bit like a farm simulator, Stardew Valley type. Obviously not to that level, I'm sure, but some kind of chill, town simulator of you and the girl. And they even go out of their way to say that like you don't have to have the main game in order to play this DLC. I could be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure they said you can buy this DLC separately. So it is a totally kind of different thing. But looking at the DLC for this game, I was kind of reminded of the reason I picked up Eastward in the first place, which is the the pixel art is just great. It's really really good. I don't know how they do that. I'm sure it's digitally done some cheater type of way, but it is really um, it is really interesting and really just nice to look at. So I am. It caught my eye. I'll say that. I'm probably not going to buy it. Probably not going to get into it, but it is something that I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. But I'm also like, why did it take 2 years? I guess they just it's so different from the main game, and maybe it's kind of robust enough to sell on its own that they had to take that long to get it out. But anyway, so I'm kind of excited about that. And then you had some more
Eastward
here.
only came out in well, let's see, it looks like it came out
21, right?
September of 21. Yeah, and then December of Xbox on 22. So that's why I'm remembering it when it
Uh,
re-released to Xbox.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think I was gonna get it on. No, I wanted to get it on Switch.
you did, and yes, I know that I think limited run games still has a they have pre-orders for like a collector's edition, and it comes with a bunch of crap. But I don't think they've ever. I think how it works is like once pre-orders are fulfilled, then they go into production or something like that. So
oh,
that's why it was like not enough orders or something. So it's still up, I think. Or they're doing a second run, and I just missed the first time around,
that could be
which
it.
could be possible because the base physical edition I think had gone out. Um, but yeah, no, the uh, you talked really highly about this game, and I don't know, it's one of those things that you're like, well, I never got around to finishing it, but I'm like, that's because if it's an RPG, like I have a habit with the old school RPGs of not ever getting around to finishing them or coming really close and just getting distracted. But at the same time, it's like you don't want that good story to end if you're enjoying yourself. But
Mm,
now you know that there's DLC, so go ahead. You have permission to go finish that game.
I have
Uh,
permission.
Close that chapter of your life and move on. You'll
Yeah, I
feel better
mean,
for it.
yeah, that might be true. I mean, there are. I don't want to go all the way back into it, but there were definitely some problems, some things I looked at that game through rose-colored glasses with, and I listened to a podcast, and somebody was like, they said some stuff, and I was like, they're right. That game is crap for this reason and that reason. But yeah. Anyway, so there's some other stuff that you had on here too, right? That you thought was interesting.
Yeah, well, you're talking about like, gameplay that looks amazing. So one of the things that does look pretty awesome is going to be the Unicorn Overlord. It's a Atlas produced and it's the new Vanillaware game. You got
Oh.
tactics based, old school looking game, and it looks phenomenal. It's There's not really much else to really go on. They have a little decent trailer, and it's just if you like tactics style, it should be right up your alley. Once again, Vanillaware makes solid stuff. They may not be for everyone, but they're they have a pedigree of quality at least,
Hmm.
and so and they kind of do a little bit of everything. I think was it Dragons? Oh, great! No, I was gonna say Dragon's Dogma because that was that was announced on a different on the PlayStation thing, I think. But it was the um, goodness, it was like a side scroller beat 'em up, and I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head, but they did an excellent job with that game. They do I think they did Odin Sphere as well,
Oh
and
yeah.
I mean,
Art
so as
wise, they're that's a good looking game. You know.
yeah, so it's once I think this will be a solid entry in another game to their catalog, but at the same time, it's I don't have the time for tactics games. I've tried like last couple tactics games I've come out, I've kind of tried, dabbled in, and I'm just like I've kind of bounced off just because there gets to a certain point where like the difficulty ramps up and I'm trying to learn the mechanics and I don't know, it's just one of those things I can't sit and play the one level for an excessive amount of time. I say that, and yet I have yet to leave the first major city of Starfield. So, but at the same time, I feel like I'm doing something else there. I'm at least I'm not stuck in the same battle, as it were.
Yeah, when
Like,
you're in a like a
you know,
tight loop like that on like a tactics game where you're just on the same level, like that's kind of what killed me about that Into the Breach game years
right?
ago. Great, great, great game, but like I just kind of I guess every level is a little different because it's procedurally generated, but just some of the stuff in it just kind of the repetitive aspects of it did wear on me a little bit. So I know what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, in games like was it Triangle Strategy and stuff like that, it's I enjoyed them. They're awesome, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I just don't have the time. Uh, another game that came out that I'm super stoked about is they're calling it Another Code, which is for me, it's Trace Memory. Trace Memory was a adventure game on the DS. Story based off of a girl getting a letter from her father, so she goes to like Blood Island or something like that to go find him. And it's just it was a DS adventure game, so like it like kind of reminded me of the old PC games like Monkey Island or like Myst or something like that, where you're just wandering to different locations. You have puzzles to solve, and the puzzles were really fun. I'm especially around that time on the early DS. I was a huge. I liked a lot of puzzle games. I still do, and that's why I was talking about the Mario versus Donkey Kong. I think that might have been on the Game Boy Advance, but like those kind of games were really fun. This one had really unique gameplay for the DS. They had new gimmicks that weren't used ever before, or at least I hadn't seen them at that point. It was before other games like Legend of Zelda would copy some of these mechanics, but like you needed to clear off your screen. And in order to clear off your screen, you'd have to blow into the mic, and then the screen, the like leaves or sand or whatever, would blow off your bottom screen and show you the image beneath it. Or they'd have like I said, a couple of these little DS gimmicks, and the story was pretty solid. Like visual novel esque. So it's pretty much paint by numbers. It's you go do the puzzle, move forward. It's not very difficult. It's a pretty linear game, but once again, the puzzles were solid. So this is also coming out. So apparently, it must be. I'm wondering if the name of Trace Memory in Japanese release was Another Code, but this is coming in with the first game and the sequel.
Hmm.
The sequel was a Wii game that was never brought to the U.S. So that's neat. I'm actually pretty interested in this. Once again, not really sure if I'll actually get around to getting to it, but it looks good. They've obviously updated the look of these games, and especially the first one. I'm curious how they're going to change some of those mechanics because the first one was DS, second one was the Wii. So at least a lot of the Wii stuff, you might be able to finagle some of it if you wanted to do like Joy Cons or something. Uh, but I'm not 100% sure how they're going to change up the gameplay for that then. Because there has to be a couple Joy like Wii Mote specific like gimmicks or something in that game, much like the DS specific gimmick. So I'm not really sure what they'll do. You can do some of that mic stuff with the DS probably. Um, I'm not sure, so we'll see. Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. And then uh, I think it was the Japanese. It was on the Japanese Direct. They mentioned Stray Children. So Stray Children was from Onion Games, and they're most noted for doing Moon. Moon is a classic RPG, uh, kind of infamous in a lot of ways because never came out, fan dubbed this and that, and then they recently remastered it not that long ago, and so this is like the game from them, and it looks neat. It's very unique in its art style. It may not be for everyone, and so it's more they're getting a lot of hype because of how classic Moon is. So it's gonna I hope it lives up to people's hype. People are so like just expecting a lot from it just based off of the fact that oh yeah, it's the same team, blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you're gonna kill this game with your expectations right off from the jump. So I hope it kind of meets most of the expectations, I guess. Um, but yeah, it could be the next like massive thing like Undertale or something, just kind of quiet out of nowhere, and then boom, just crushes. Makes changes the dynamic. Who knows? But once again, if you ever get a chance to play Moon, do so. Unfortunately, Nick already had some of it spoiled, so be careful for if you ever search for information about it. Be careful. There might be heavy spoilers around the corner.
Yeah.
So, yep. Those are mostly the ones that I was super into. Um, yeah. Anything else that you really remember from the Nintendo Direct that you wanted to talk about?
I was just gonna say that the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remaster looks good. Not gonna play it, but it does. They're showing it again, and it does look very nice. But yeah, so we can go on to the next thing.
Sure. Yeah, and that would be the state of play. All right. So yeah, that one had a strong is maybe not the right word, but an interesting opener for that.
Yeah, so they open up with a game called Baby Steps, where seems to be some sort of I don't know. It's funny. It's hard to describe though, but you're basically this guy that's like face down, and you have to make him walk. And apparently, the mechanics of making him walk are pretty difficult. Looks funny, looks fun, looks silly. Uh, it's a trailer you should check out at least, just to see what's really going on there.
So one of the names I saw in the credits and is Bennett Foddy, and most infamous for Qua. Um, so this is 2008, and it is a all it was is you're a track runner,
Oh,
and
is it the
you had to
same
use
guy? Is it really?
yeah.
Now it makes sense.
So
I was gonna say
it makes
that game.
it's a
Yeah,
3D quap is what it looks like. And but quap was you used a uh QWOP to move parts of the limbs of the legs.
yeah,
And so you had to move them in order for them to make steps, and the faster you went, the faster this person could run. And then a handful of years later, they made Get Over It, which was kind of a little like indie weird gem that people like really liked for a hot moment. And that was I'm trying to remember how it worked. It was like you're a guy who's in a cauldron or something like that, and so his upper torso has like an axe or something like that, and you had to use funky mechanics to tumble head over heels to move forward, and you'd have to go up hills and stuff like that, and so you're getting over like the hill and such,
yeah,
hence the title. And it's trying to get to a certain distance. That's what these games were, is like see how far you can get beforehand. So yes, because the movement mechanics are so clunky and weird, it's like Surgeon Simulator or like Octodad, um, where the half the fun and is just laughing with friends at how stupid you look and how you're screwing up the jank. And yeah, so it's uh it's an interesting one to start your show with, but I guess if you put it anywhere else, it's a weird spot to, you wouldn't end with it. That's for sure.
yeah. It's definitely a good attention getter, if not
Yep.
just for how weird it is.
Yeah. They talked a lot about that grapple hook for a hot minute, and I'm like, it's a very dry, weird humor.
Yeah,
So, but
yeah,
I think it'll be popular with Twitch.
yeah.
That's for darn sure. So, uh,
Then there's a. Sorry, I was gonna go ahead and move on if that's okay.
go right ahead. No, for it.
Ghost Runner 2. I didn't play the first Ghost Runner, but I thought Ghost Runner 1. So Ghost Runner 2 looks like to be some kind of first person shooter esque type game, at least a first person game. Was the first Ghost Runner first person?
Yeah, they're runner games.
Okay.
So think Mirror's Edge, but more
Ah,
violence,
okay.
and cyberpunk background.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
Yeah.
the la- the reveal trailer that was at one of the other showcases for something else was like the them going outside the tower, like the giant corporate construct tower, and the motorcycle busting through the window and then driving straight down. So that's one of the mechanics you'll get is in this one is a motorcycle at some point. Uh, but yeah, it looks the first Ghost Runner was amazing looking, and this one is most definitely going to be equally parts amazing and probably like it was a very addictive game. I only played a little bit of it. I have it on my PlayStation, and I think PlayStation Plus had given it out for free at some point.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, the this one a lot of people are anticipating equal good things about it. So if you like the first one, you'll probably like this one.
all right.
I'm super stoked about. Uh, they showed more of Resident Evil 4 for PS VR 2, and they actually announced releasing in winter. So that's it's interesting that they're trying to aim for the winter time frame. Uh, which then I automatically, being a skeptic that I am, be like, oh yeah, okay, cool, first quarter next year, Roger that.
Yeah.
But they show some good gameplay. They show you fighting the Kruger fight with doing knife combat, so that'll be interesting. And yeah, it's the El Diago fight when you're on the little boat trying to fight the giant sea monster. That's a giant salamander, I think. So that'll be fun. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, that's one of the things. It's like they didn't really announce a lot of PSVR2 stuff, and but a lot of people they have high hopes for this, especially after Village. 'Cause Village is touted as one of the best PSVR2 games out currently. So they all right. So what else do you got on the docket here?
Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn. I played Tales of Arise for maybe 2 hours, um, a little over a year ago, and I really wanted to like that game, but getting into it, it was just very clear that it was not. It was not for me. The story was all right, starting out a little. I wasn't totally crazy about it, and then I got into the gameplay, and it just didn't really do it for me. Um, but they're making some kind of sequel. I think it's a Bandai game. It is an anime. It is just an anime style RPG. And anyway, I just wanted to announce that it is that Beyond the Dawn is this next one, and it is being made. It looks like it's coming right off of. Not that I know too much about the first one, but it looks like it's coming right off of the first one because it's starting out with a bunch of characters that I'd never saw, but seem to have been introduced throughout the play of the first one.
They make the comment of the gangs back together again or something like that.
Yeah,
So it's um yeah, the first one had some mad reviews, like it was really well received.
yeah,
And I think maybe you should go back to it because when you played the first one, you weren't about the anime, but now you're more about the anime. So maybe you can tap into your inner weeb and really, just go at it.
yeah. And there was some stuff that was like shown later that I had seen where I was like, oh, that looks cool, but something about the combat really it didn't really grab me, and it was just the story was kind of slow, and I don't know. I had just been playing a bunch of Near, that Near uh
Replicant?
Replicant, yes, Near Replicant. So I think I had kind of gone through that not too long before, and for some reason it just didn't really catch me quite right. But I don't know. I'll think about it. There's a lot of other stuff to play, new stuff and old stuff. I mean, I should go back and play. Should go back and try to finish up Tears of the Kingdom. I still have I think I'm like freaking 60 hours into that game, and I think I have like another 20 to go before I could be done. Anyway,
You can just be done with that game whenever you want.
I
I mean, just
know I can.
But as far as the Tales games, they've been Bandai for I don't know forever, but they've been Bandai since Symphonia, I believe, on the
Right.
GameCube.
Yeah, I forget this is
Um,
all a part of that. Yeah.
yeah, so this is just and so yeah, it's one of those things that like I'm sure it's just fine, but since I didn't touch the first one, yeah, they make quite a few sequels nowadays to their franchises. So since I don't touch the first one, I'm not going to touch the second one. But speaking of games, I'm not going to touch. But I think it's meant just for you.
Damn it.
Avatar.
So
Yeah, that's right. Frontiers of Pandora. As our resident Navi export or Navi, like as they kept on pronouncing it, like the hard syllable break throughout the entire trailer, like a dozen times at least through from the start to finish. Um, yeah, this is just meant solely for you. You can really get the most bang out of your James Cameron buck. Play this for 60 hours, I'm pretty sure. Uh, yeah.
so you were threatening me with this joke before the podcast, and so thank you for, I guess, waking me up and tossing me my sword. Yeah, this game, and as I said then, I'll say it now. I did watch like about 30 seconds of this, or I don't know, a tiny amount. I don't even know how long this trailer or whatever this thing was for. But I watched a little bit of it, skipped through it, and I was like, okay, it it is a graphically pretty good looking game. Didn't see too much of a HUD. I guess they're trying to hide that. Looked pretty okay. Just the very bottom edge of okay. And I skipped on.
You don't want to learn the story about how this girl's abducted and raised by the bad guys and how she learns to discover herself through re-entry to the clan and all that stuff. I have no idea about anything that's happened in Avatar since after the first movie.
I'm good.
Uh, eh,
I'm good. I'll just wait for the movies to come out and enjoy those, or not enjoy those as I will. Uh,
you really talked highly of that second movie, so that's
it was
why.
pretty
And
good.
like
That's pretty good. Three movies in one. I mean, I can actually point to Abyss, Avatar 1, Avatar 2 are definitely three major chapters where the movie totally takes a turn. It doesn't matter. I don't care enough to argue about it. I'm probably wrong. I don't care. Um, so yeah, we can be done
okay,
with this with this Avatar conversation.
all right, and real quick, touch base on a few others games. We have Helldivers 2. I don't know if you ever had a chance to play the first Helldivers.
We talked about this. Yes, I did play a little bit of it.
Okay.
Not as much as you
Yeah,
did, obviously, but I did play a tiny bit on Vita, I
yeah.
think. That's where it
Well,
was, on Vita. Yeah, never mind.
I ended up playing it on the PS yeah, PS4. And that was a perfect game to play at a hotel when we had to pay for their internet service, and it was we played with some other buddies. But that game was addicting and stupid. A lot of confusion and a lot of fun. But the big change is from the isometric view to a third person view, and they showed a lot of the different like some of the different combat styles. Apparently, one of the guys has essentially like a rocket launcher, and the other dude is just like his ammo mule. So he's just like, yeah, you need to like load me up, and so he's just taking ammo from him and loading the other guy as he's firing. So I'm like, that's an interesting loadout. Is that guy ammo for everybody, or is that just one of his secondary like traits? He's like, yeah, I'll carry your ammo for you. Um, yeah, so like because that takes another gun out of the field if you're just loading him up the entire time. But yeah, that should be a fun game. Let's see, we got Spider-Man 2. They talked more
So,
about that. Showed more of the traversal system. You get to now do Queens and Brooklyn,
yeah,
and that's a big it's like double the landmass from the first essentially.
not
They're
quite, but
doing
pretty close. Yeah.
yeah, so you end up getting uh, a lot of people are really excited about the switching back and forth. Very GTA 5 in essence, where you pull back out, see the map, and then zoom into someone else. So that'll be fun. Didn't know if you
Um,
had anything else you wanted to say about that.
I did. I'm coming around, and I'm getting in the mood to play this game. Um, I'm definitely not gonna play the first one. I'm just not gonna spend the time on that. I know it's great. I know it's good, but I don't want to play two of these games. I kind of just want to play this one. I may not. I may not buy it. But every time I see it, I'm like, dang, that does look like a good video game ass video game. I like I like everything I see about it. always kind of like Spider-Man. And I'm actually, you're about to mention Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That they talk more about that. And between Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I like right now I would be way more inclined to play Spider-Man 2. Um, it just seems like it'll be a cool, fun, like turn your brain off and just have a good time kind of game.
Yeah, for sure. I really like Spider-Man and the Miles standalone content, and so this is going to be, I'm a huge Insomniac fan. I play pretty much, I try to play everything they do, of late, anyways, and so yeah, I think this will be fine. I think this will be, there's no reason to think that this is going to be anything short from an awesome game, and so yeah, there's not really much else to say about that. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
The Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they showed a lot more of that. You get to ride a Segway now, so woot. It looks like the Costa del Sol region. They showed the Junon cannon firing. They talk about the weapons. You get to see chocobo climbing mountain and stuff like that. So that means the chocobo breeding's in there. You have the gold saucer, stuff like that. So they've actually done quite a lot. They've added to this game. I think originally they were talking about this new series being done in 3 entries, and at first it didn't seem possible because they only did Migger, which is such a short part in the game as a whole. But now you can look at it and be like, yeah, totally. If they've put in this much into what should be into the second one, they could theoretically be done by game 3. Um,
Yeah.
whether or not I actually play this one, I'm not sure. I never played the Intergrade, the additional DLC stuff that they came out with for Final Fantasy the 7 remake, which apparently has a lot of good story content. There was something about it that the remake was just lacking for me. I played it just to see what it was all about. They are changing enough in it, so they're kind of doing like the Evangelion 1.1 like 1-1 deal where like we're going to take to retell the same story but throw in just enough tweaking in it, and then by the end make it a big enough difference, I think, because they've really started hinting more or showing more of the past characters and stuff like that, which you never really got much FaceTime. And so they shows like Zach. That's not really a spoiler, especially if you haven't played remake, or if you haven't played the original series, then I don't care. Then you're not paying attention to this anyways.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they're showing more of Zach, and they hinted at him a little bit in the first game, which obviously in the OG you wouldn't find Zach until far later. Um, so yeah, they're really they're gonna. I think they talk about different worlds at some point too in the trailer. So once again, it might be a merging of like a multiverse type of thing. I can see them trying to pull something like that. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. I'm curious about it, but at the same time, part of me just wants to wait for it all to be done because they'll come out with the final game, and I swear I'm almost willing to bet money that they're going to re-release the first game, but re-release it with the new graphics and everything for the PS5, because originally it was built on PS4 tech,
Yeah.
because the new so you were able to they released this in, depending on how you saw this, you might have seen this at 1080p 30, but you could have also, depending on where you saw it at 4K 60. So if you watched it at 4K 60, it looks awesome. It really does. It
Yeah.
looks phenomenal. Um, so they kind of have me sold on all that, like that kind of stuff, and they
Yeah.
showed enough weird side story things, and I'm like, cool. They really got a lot of that down pat. But because they're throwing in a lot of weird side events, you have Hojo with the clones or whatever, and he already makes reference to Cloud in certain ways. I'm like, okay, we'll see how this, like, they're going to do enough in new and interesting stuff, is what I think it is. So it's almost like a companion piece to the original game. But I kind of want to wait till the last game's out, and also I swear they're going to remake that first game. They're going to
They're gonna
update it.
remaster it. I mean, they've probably got the
Final
assets.
Fantasy remaster remake, or Final Fantasy 7 remake remaster. Yeah, RR. Um, Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and they're going to repack it. They're going to repack it all three games before the PS5 is done. It's going to be all three games packed together to buy in one glorious collector's edition that you're not going to be able to get unless you pay, $600 or three times the normal price for on eBay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but I mean, like so that's impressive on its own, but at the same time, um,
I
I don't know
feel
if I can
the
put that
same.
in.
I feel the same.
Yeah. So
Um,
yes, but if you had to only pick one, Spider-Man's the way to go. I think it's a more complete package in a smaller box, that looks interesting. So,
yeah.
all right, that's about the last of the state of play stuff. And real quick, TGS, like I mentioned before, going on right now. Just a couple quick minor things to talk about on that front, and so I'll let you take it away, Nick.
Yeah, first trailer I wanted to mention is one called Beast. It's a medieval turn-based strategy game with metal music, um, which stands out. It also has a pretty, I don't know, pronounced story. The story seems to be, in cutscenes and stuff like that. Um, it's kind of weird. Didn't really understand everything that was going on there, but looks it looks kind of irreverent. I don't know. Anyway, just sort of a weird little game. Not really sure what to make of it, but looks kind of cool, I guess. Um, Next thing is Hotel Barcelona. This is by Swery, and also Suda51 is involved in this as well. Um, so yeah, this is a some kind of a it's like a campy slasher, or it's inspired by campy slashers. It's a 2.5D roguelike, some kind of loop based game. You fight enemies, and then it seems like they made quite a bit to do with the bosses. Um, it's definitely weird, and it definitely doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a really well polished game. Um, but I think that's par for the course with Swery. Is he makes games that are weird instead of good, and that's good in and of itself. So, but this one doesn't really look like it's doing too much interesting to me. Was Swery the one that made that game where you have to dismember yourself in order to get through levels? Do you remember that game that came out a couple years ago? 5 years ago? It was probably a while ago.
It's not. I'm drawing a blank on
So
that one.
just real quick, I think it's Swery, but like it might have been one of the other guys that are pretty similar. You're a you're a feminine looking person that I think is trans, but I could be wrong. So just anyway, you're a person and you're looking for your significant other, and you have to like go through levels, and then but like there's always like a buzzsaw or something that's going to kill you or something, but it just chops off your limbs or something, and sometimes you have to take the requisite amount of damage in order to be able to fit through, like you have to have your legs chopped off in order to fit through a a small space, and then or like everything chopped off except for like one arm in order to fit through a small space, so you can turn a lever so that you can finish that level. Anyway, that was really weird and unique and not something that I really wanted to play, but I was like, that is definitely very different take on sort of that style of game. So this game, all that is to say, this game, Hotel Barcelona, doesn't really seem to be doing anything quite like that. Though once I get into it, or once someone talks about it and I hear about it, maybe I will be proven wrong, and there is something extra weird going on.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think of the game you're talking about, and I've the only game I can think of is a much older game where it was about you getting dismembered and your head rolling around or some crap, and it wasn't a very good game. I'm drawing a blank on that one too.
Yeah.
Um, but what Suda is noted for is he did
No more
like the cat
heroes.
that cat game,
Oh,
The Good
okay.
Life.
Oh, okay.
You're like a photographer going to an island. Also, the Twin Peaks inspired Deadly Premonitions.
Right.
So
Okay.
the game that is famous for not only copying Twin Peaks but also being one of the most janky pieces of garbage. And it's hilarity because of all those things.
Yeah.
Um, you have and D4 was also a big one where it was like I think it was an Xbox game. It was supposed to be like a series of games, but they only made the one.
Right.
Uh, Very over the top dramatic, like acting, as it were.
Who
Um,
who did No More
so
Heroes?
No More Heroes.
Is that not
It was
Suda?
um that could have been Suda. That wasn't Swery. Or wait, hold on, give me a second. Yeah, because that might have been Suda. No More Heroes. They Let It Die. That free to play game was his. And also was it Killer
Goichi
7? I think.
Goichi Suda.
Yeah.
51. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
that is Suda 51, yeah.
Yeah. Because I know the
It's a cool name.
ended up doing, there's quite a few. Both guys, the fact that they're collaborating something, that's a big hype piece because they're both unique in their own ways. Um,
Makes sense.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Killer 7 was one of the all-time just weird games, especially for the GameCube. It was just like, I can't believe this thing came out on the GameCube. It is so, at the time, super edgy, but also just um very much a 17, like 17 plus game. And
Yeah.
it's just like on the family GameCube, there wasn't like, it was that and Resident Evil like was part of the Capcom 5 or something like that. Or it was that there was uh Piano 106 or something, or 105. They like some music rhythm game, Killer 7, Resident Evil, and there was like one other game that might have Beautiful Joe might have been a part of that. And then there
Uh
was supposed to be like there might have been one other game that was supposed to come out as part of this package, and then that never came to fruition. But yeah, it was a stellar game back then. The other more recent game was like Killer is Dead. Was also a Suda game. So no, it's there's going to be a lot of hype to this game. Those who are fans of either of them, this is kind of like if you got two of your favorite directors who do weird stuff to like to hang out together. Um, I don't know. I can't really draw an analogy right now, but like if you had a Tarantino and someone else who did like a lot of splatter, or a lot of like Tarantino and Guillermo del Toro, both weird in their own right, and they'd make out something super potentially super awesome. So yeah.
that would be weird. That would be really cool and strange, but you're right, yeah.
Yeah, so
100%.
that's like off the top of my head, real quick. That's something that'd be a mashup that would be similar to this in theory.
Yeah.
How much they're actually helping or collaborating, who knows? But yeah, for sure. I didn't actually uh dive into. I didn't see the trailer for this, so I didn't actually know much about it. So okay, cool. Thanks for bringing that up.
Another one is My Lovely Empress, which is a dark romance strategy game. So like apparently like you're a dude and this is ancient China and the empress dies and you're her lover or king or whatever. And so you have a choice to either work on figuring out how to resurrect her or move on with your life and become like the like become the ruler or something like that. So that's where like the romance comes in, is like you're romancing other people in other kingdoms in order to consolidate power and all that stuff. And that's kind of where the dark part of it comes in, because like, what will you stay true to your love or will you not? And then there's also a lot of like, I say strategy, but it's like sort of like city builder type strategy stuff where you're moving things around and strategizing, but in order to keep your kingdom running smoothly. Um, it has a pretty good art style, I think, which a game like this would definitely need because there's not a whole lot of action going on the screen, a lot of reading, a lot of thinking. But I saw this trailer and I was like, okay, this is a definitely kind of a sort of an interesting looking thing. Probably won't get it, but it caught my eye at least.
Yeah. I there wasn't much else that really struck me about this. So, yeah, it's one of those things that just like it looks interesting. Keep your eye on it, but
Yeah.
just pass it along. Um, but the next one you have, a lot of people are excited about.
Yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2 looks nice, looks good. I didn't really see much of a HUD. I'm always concerned about the HUD because they try to hide that to make the game look a little bit more aesthetic. But I think it's a good HUD is not unaesthetic to me, and it's very informational. But anyway, they kind of showed, sword and board guy, magician, and a couple others. And didn't play the first one. I think you did though. So it looks good. Probably won't play it, but definitely looks like it'll be a pretty game on my PS5.
Yeah, the no, the first one was fun in its own right. I had such a bad time with it, as to say, I was not good at it at all.
Mm,
Terrible at the game, but I actually it was some good times. You got to There had some multiplayer aspects in there too, so hopefully they'll improve the multiplayer gameplay, or at least I'm hoping they're going to continue with multiplayer, because that was cool. This is they also came out with an anime a handful of years ago on Netflix. Not really that good, so don't waste your time. Uh, just
yeah,
PSA on that one. I mean, it's not bad. It's not like really bad, but it wasn't really anything good. It's not really. Yeah, you're not missing out. Um, but yeah, that's just so people were waiting for Dragon's Dogma 2 forever now. I feel like that they've been chomping at the bit for a great long time, and getting that much closer to being out and about. So that'll make a lot of people happy. Unless if it's terrible, then it's gonna
make
fear the wrath,
people
right?
very angry. Yeah, that's true.
So
The
all
last
right.
game on here is one called Nivalis. It is a first person noodle shop management mystery in a cyberpunk setting. Um, there's all those things. It seems like it'll be a slow burn, as a good cyberpunk I think lends itself to a nice good slow burn. But yeah, it's a little bit of a pixelated art style sometimes, but then in the first person, it also seems a little bit more crisp, which I didn't really care for all the time. But the fact that it's a noodle shop management game also kind of piqued my interest. Definitely sort of a weird one. I'm gonna be honest, sort of a weird game. When I first started to watch the trailer, I was like, this looks like garbage. But then as they kind of said, no, you're doing this, and then you're going around the city figuring things out. I was like, okay, this game seems like it might be a little more interesting than I first thought. I would be curious to anybody that plays this. I would be curious what they think about it because and where it goes. I would even take spoilers on a game like this because it's definitely different, and I don't really know what to make of it. But anyway, looks kind of cool.
So yeah, and the one thing I didn't write in the docket, but I was semi excited for is the the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
understand that.
it gets a release date. So
Was that
I
for the no, that's TGS, or was that for the Switch?
TGS.
Okay.
So and it's so they've you've never played any of the Phoenix Wright games, right?
No, unfortunately not.
Uh, I mean, once again, this goes back to my whole like adventure game roots, and yeah, so essentially, it's just that it's a simple adventure game detective story. You're an attorney, but you got to go to different locations. You're finding clues, asking questions. Um, simple gameplay. I'm the old Ace Attorney games. Like you can get to a point where you get stuck physically. Like I cannot progress because I've failed to pick up the right item, or I forget didn't ask the one question about the one item. I thought I did, but I didn't. So you end up going back through each location, talking to everyone. Like it's those old adventure games kind of have that stuck loop at times. So it's not perfect, but the actual bits were pretty fun, and Yeah, that's I don't know. Apollo Justice was also a super good name. Just but I actually yeah, I own the first handful of these Ace Attorney games for the DS. The DS is probably my favorite Nintendo platform after the Super Nintendo. So that's I really did like the because well that and the fact that it played at Game Boy Advance games. So it kind of I don't count the Advance in itself because the original DS and DS Lite I think that's it peaked at the DS Lite.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I stand. But totally, if you want a simple, it's like I said, they're almost like visual novels because they have like a whole big story arc. A complete. You go by chapters, each new case, um, and they're fun. They're memorable. Yeah. So when this comes out, it should be all right. It's looking like January, the end of January, January 25th of 2024. Um, and yeah, it should be good times if you want something that's not as serious. And I'm sure it's going to come out on the Switch. It's the Switch and all all last gen consoles, so current consoles should be able to play them too. So yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, that I'm glad for you. I'm glad for you. I hope you get to play that.
I'm not like I said, I want to play them. Whether or not I actually get around to it, who knows? But it's just one of those things that hey, it's nice to remaster a lot of these things. To keep them somewhat relevant, or like or else you kind of lost and forgotten about. Especially since some of these things weren't, like I think some of them came out to Steam or whatever, but certain games, like Trace Memory or a lot of the Super Mario RPG. So like all the stuff that's essentially the late 90s, early 2000s, they're all coming back.
They're all coming back.
All
Um,
right.
all right. Yeah. So I guess we can just run through the Xbox leaked documents stuff. There's been a bunch of stuff that's come out. Who did you say did a really good video breaking it down?
Gamers Nexus. Gamers Nexus, highly recommend giving them a watch. And they just explain going over the documents. There's more than just they have quick about of the leaked information for the concept of new consoles, but also their forecast. In these documents, have their forecast for games and things that they want to try to acquire. Xbox, uh, the projected release dates, how much money these things are projected to make, and they also give you a heads up saying, hey, these things are obviously out of date because these are old documents, and so they have like projected release date and money earned for Starfield, but Starfield's like 2022 because that was before they got pushed back a year. So obviously that information, can taken with a grain of salt, but they also talk about projected new releases, sequels, expansions, or new IP. So that's kind of you can get a really good synopsis from Gamers Nexus, and hopefully try to throw a link in the description. But yeah, give them a shot. But real quick, in case people don't want to watch a whole video on that, uh, what are some of the quick bullet points, Nick?
Yeah, some of the more interesting things I saw. There's quite a bit that I saw this Kotaku article had like 11 things that they thought were interesting, but I thought that Xbox or Microsoft considered trying to buy Nintendo. The article I saw said that they considered buying Nintendo, and I was like, let's be a little bit more. Let's be a little bit. Let's give Nintendo a bit more credit than that. Considered trying to buy Nintendo. I find it hard to believe that they would be able to buy Nintendo. That'd be a very expensive purchase, and I'm not sure that Nintendo would actually be willing to sell. But you never know with the corporate stuff. If you throw enough money around, that might be possible. Um, Another thing, three-quarters of Xbox players had a Series S, I guess of the new generations that were being bought, had a Series S, and instead of a Series X. But the Kotaku article was saying that now it's probably a little closer to 50-50, but that might have been frustrating to Microsoft with so many people buying the lower powered version of their console and having to develop for both. But that, and then they didn't think that Baldur's Gate 3 would be a hit, and so they were kind of expecting it to not really be that big of a deal, and apparently it really was. I know everybody has been talking about it like crazy. Um, and then another one is that the Series X might go all digital in the near future in 2024 or something like that. There's some plans or some idea that that might happen. Not sure if it actually will, especially now that the news has been leaked. But that was definitely something that seemed to be on the table at one point or another. But overall, I mean, as much as you don't want a bunch of these documents being leaked to the public, all in all, it seems like it's not that bad. I saw some people trying to make it kind of bad on Reddit, but I was like, they're a corporation. They're gonna do seedy, dark corporation type stuff. But as far as all that goes, they're really not doing anything that's out of the ordinary or anti-consumer. They just seem like they're trying to make money and trying to do the best by the consumer that they can. So doesn't seem too bad to me. But then again, I haven't read everything, so maybe there's some stuff I missed.
Yeah, it's having gone through or like saw some stuff about the articles. It's pretty interesting, but once again, yeah, these are old documents for one. It's not
Yeah,
like they just stated. So some of these things are you gotta be taken, time in consideration. That's
grain of
not like
salt.
they've
Yeah,
gone ahead and uh they never made a proposition to Nintendo, for example. They were just talking amongst themselves
yeah,
and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, uh it is what it is. I mean, companies want to buy each other out. The idea of um, owning a major corporation. I mean, no one would have thought in the past that Sega would have been, owned by some or like had made just games. The idea of hey, getting Nintendo would be a big win, but at the same time, we know like Nintendo's never going to budge. They're an old school company, but there's other parts to that aspect. Like, hey, um, they're a publicly traded company in Japan, so that means if you can, that's actually a huge deal for a lot of companies will buy other companies just for the fact that they're publicly traded, and that's a foothold into Japan where it's almost impossible for an outside company now to just come in and try to establish themselves in that kind of way. So it's there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, but it's just interesting. And it's kind of it's a fun behind the scenes in my opinion. I find it more really more interesting, like just bust out the popcorn, see how this stuff plays out, and yeah.
yeah. It
But
is
speaking about some
definitely
weird
interesting.
ass stuff with companies, the one thing I forgot to mention in here was the so there was a big roller coaster ride from like 2 weeks ago to now about Unity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the long and short of it was Unity stuck its foot in its mouth and then had to backtrack, and now there's like so there's a lack of trust there. But what they did is they tried charging. They were going to try to make everyone pay for downloads for game clients. This is going to be a very very quick synopsis. So please, if you're more interested, look up more about this because I'm just going to give you the really quick TLDR. So they were trying to make more money by having people pay per download or installation of their game, and they weren't very specific on how they were doing it. They just said or how they were going to count a download. So if I
Oh yeah.
download it onto my system, and then like it's under my Steam account, I download a Unity game, and then I download it onto my other computer, or if I have a Steam Deck, each one of those downloads, they made it sound like that the publisher is going to have to pay for each one of those. Of course, they came out with a statement, multiple statements afterwards, being like, "Hey, that's not how this is," or "Here's the clarification. Here's another clarification." Um, Long story short, a lot of people were very upset, and a lot of major company or small startups who focus on Unity as their main platform, they're like, "We're making a sequel to our thing. We're gonna have to look for a new platform, but all of our developers develop for Unity, so that's actually really difficult." Um, and now, due to all the ire of all the people and the fans and all that stuff, they're like, "We're sorry, we're backpedaling, we're this ain't happening." Um, and that's the moral. Like the final outcome is like they went back to square one, and but now since they've gone through that whole roller coaster, people aren't going to trust Unity as much. People are just waiting for them to pull the corporate move and try to make more money. And the way they had the tier system for their how much you paid depending on how much income you cut. So, if you made over like 200K, then you're gonna have, like that's when you have to pay differently and stuff like that. It's um once again, it was a very shady thing to do. Um, and speaking about public traded companies, Unity is one. So then it's, you get the argument of, well, this makes them money, and therefore shareholders want to make money.
Mhm.
But in the long term, how bad is this going to be? And so who knows? It's been a weird ride for it though, and it was interesting to see all this fallout. Um, Currently, everyone's okay at this very moment, but deep down, we'll see
And
how many people still stay to Unity, how many people try to add or try to leave. We'll see if they try to find a better platform, much like that D&D fiasco not that long ago.
oh man,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so
Well,
it,
I mean, they will lose some people, and they probably will make in a year or so, whenever things kind of died back down, they will take another step out and try to make money off of this in the way that they're initially trying to do. Um, I think that the main thing they're going to learn from this is just they really need to be very clear and concise and simplified about the way that they talk about their pricing. That seemed to be the main issue, is that they just kind of threw it out there, and that's always a problem, especially when it comes to pricing. It's like you need to be really clear what people are going to be paying, and they didn't do the math, and they didn't look at it from the people that actually they're consumers. They didn't look at it from their point of view, like, hey, can I be, can I lose my house because my game was popular? Like, is that a possibility? And it's like, well, strictly by what we said, yeah, it kind of is. So if they don't make that mistake again, then I mean, they're a corporation. They're going to be grabbing for as much dough as possible, um, in the near and far term. Um, but as long as they're upfront about it, that's really all we can kind of ask for. Because there are other game engines. I actually looked up some of this not too long ago, and Unity is up there for indie devs. And Unreal, I think people like more, but it's more expensive on the front end. Could be wrong, but there's also several other pretty dang decent engines out there. So, when you make a game, you have a bit of a choice. Unity, I think, probably has the most tutorials, probably the easiest to get started in. But there's plenty of options out there still. So even if they get a little bit predatory or a little bit they're trying to corner people, there's still plenty of options. So that's another thing to think about.
yeah, like I said, it was just all said and done. Like it's a big circle to go back to square one, and
Yeah.
the only thing gained is a lack of trust. And but the average person wouldn't have paid much attention to it, or they'll forget about it by next week.
Yeah.
So,
I already forgot about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right. We're gonna wrap it up for today. We've gone a little bit longer than usual, but that's a lot's happened. So,
A lot of news.
all right,
It's video game season.
yeah, for sure. And then, granted, pretty soon all the drops are gonna start happening, and that'll keep people really busy, and that'll be leading into a good holiday season, I think. So there's that to look forward to. But yeah, well, and thanks for making it out this far, Nick. It's a pleasure having you today. And as always, what are your words of wisdom you have for the people?
Um, Always remember to brown the beef fully, because there are it's a long thing, but like steak you can eat rare, but beef you're really not supposed to eat rare, because there's certain types of bacteria, and that gets mixed up, and then it's inside and it's rare. And just make sure to brown the beef thoroughly.
Disgusting. Thank you, Nick. All right. Well, you all take care. Until next time, take it easy.
Bye.